Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap Ltd materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. Before I get started, I have a few announcements. First of all, there are several sales going on with Bookmap. First of all, the Black Friday sale. That's 50% off on a quarterly subscription. Global Plus, quarterly, 50% off, and data as well. So that's the Black Friday deal. Then Cyber Monday deal, 60% off. Global Plus, monthly plus data. And that is, again, for the monthly, 60% off. And then 50% off on add-ons, and all these deals are going on through the end of the year. Also, want to announce the Pro Trader webinar series began last Friday, continues this week through this Friday. Here's the schedule. All right, here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index. SPY is the ETF version of that index. And the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with the ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow on Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow on Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat in YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And hello, Dan. Welcome. Glad you're here. Here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, December 3rd. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, and events for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know and I'll be glad to do that. All right, I'm going to start with economic data first. And then there's a big event involving a stock. I'm sure you are, if you're actively trading, you're all aware of this now. So I'll go over that in a minute. So let's start with economic data first. So while we're doing that, let's take a look at the ES futures and Bookmap. Let's go to ES. All right, so first of all, this morning, 8:15 a.m., the ADP employment private payroll data came out, and that data was less than expected, less than the previous number, and also less than zero. So a drop in private payrolls. And that was at 8:15. There was really not much of a reaction. A brief drop, then a recovery back up to the SPX 6850 level that was acting as resistance earlier this morning. All right, the other economic data was the ISM Services PMI at 10 a.m. And I'm not sure if that had much of an impact on the market either, but that data was greater than expected, greater than the previous number, also greater than 50, indicating expansion. All right, so the big data or big event this morning was really involved Microsoft. Just right around 9 a.m., there was a news release that Microsoft has lowered AI sales quota. And that was the cause that I could find for this big drop lower. So a huge drop in the indexes, as well as Microsoft, of course. And we'll take a look at Microsoft and some of the AI-related stocks and Mag 7 stocks in just a few minutes. But then after that quick drop, the S&P 500 has recovered and now trading at highs of the day. So that's ES. And again, the news, Microsoft. So we'll take a look at Microsoft again in more detail. And by the way, right around 10:37, news came out that Microsoft has not lowered their sales quotas. So I have not had enough time to do a full in-depth research on that. But anyway, Microsoft is definitely still trading down for the day. All right, next, coming up, tomorrow, jobless claims, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then on Friday, PCE data comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And I don't know if that's current or not. And then at 10 a.m., Michigan Consumer Sentiment comes out. The jobs report will not be released on Friday. That's the normal first Friday of the month. And there will be no data for October, but the November data will be released on 12/16, December 16th. So that's when the November jobs data will come out. And that will be a week after the FOMC meeting. And YouTube Gold Zone, welcome, glad you're here. Ask, what is the difference between Forex and option and who's more profitable? Well, who's more profitable? I can't say that. That depends on the trader and the strategy. I don't look at Forex. I don't trade Forex. And if you trade Forex, you're in the wrong place. If you trade options and stocks and futures, you're in the right place. All right, so that's the news. And again, the big event today is the Microsoft drop. All right, before we spend more time on this chart, let's step back. Let's take a look at a higher time frame. And I'm going to go to the SPX, the underlying index. So we're moving on to positional analysis now. This is again the S&P 500 SPX index. This is a 1-year, 1-day chart in Thinkorswim. So the rally that began early in April was really in a pretty nice uptrend until October 10th. And that's when this Trump announced tariffs, additional tariffs on China. That was October 10th. Tariff tantrum. SPX recovered and then has chopped around. Most recent data. This is the November 20th NVIDIA earnings report, AI puke, and then recovery. And then we'll take a look now at what has happened since that recovery. So let's take a look now at a 30-day 1-hour chart. So since the 1120 AI NVIDIA puke, which did SPX did trade down below the 1010 tariff tantrum low, and now is trading in a pretty narrow zone between 6,800 and 6,850. And that has been since last Wednesday. And note I highlighted another support and resistance zone here, right around 6,800 to 6,810. And note SPX did test the top of that level, 6,810 this morning. All right, let's take a look at the levels on this chart. I'm going to start with the expected moves. Dashed purple lines showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected moves. Also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. And so those change every day. Note, I do post the expected moves every day for SPX, ES, and NQ in the Options-Jug chat channel in Discord the day before, the evening before, sometime between the 5 and 6 p.m. Futures close, Eastern time. All right, that's it. That's the expected moves, and it now looks like SPX is moving up toward the upper daily expected move today. All right, let's take a look now at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. They're available to Spotgamma subscribers. They're based on gamma-weighted open interest, and they're provided on a variety of trading platforms. Again, this is Thinkorswim, a 30-day 1-hour chart. First key daily level is the put wall at 6,500. That's a strike with large negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. And next level up is the volatility trigger at 67.95. That is Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility, though that is based on Spotgamma's older total open interest model. And we'll take a look at gamma based on their newer synthetic open interest model in just a couple minutes. It paints a little bit different picture. And note the volatility trigger did move up slightly from yesterday. All right, next level is the call wall and absolute gamma strike at 7,000. So the call wall is the strike with largest net positive gamma. It can be expected to act as resistance. And the absolute gamma strike is a strike with the largest absolute positive negative gamma. And that's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. So we have 6,500 on the downside and 7,000 on the upside. All right, so the only shifts in levels for SPX and SPY, volatility triggers both shifted slightly higher for SPX and SPY. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart. So here's that support and resistance zone that I was talking about. So earlier on Wednesday, that zone acted as resistance, and since then has been support. Down at the lower end on Monday, then the upper end. Monday, Tuesday, and today, right around 68.10. And SPX now heading up toward the upper daily expected move, which is at 68.64. All right, let's take a quick look at SPY, then we'll get back to Bookmap. SPY key level earlier today was this combo level at 683.67. That acted as resistance yesterday. Then before the cash opened, just before the Microsoft news. So let's zoom in on this a bit. So here's when the Microsoft news came out. Right around 9 a.m. Quick drop. And then that was the S&P 500 SPY began recovering before the cash open, shown on the dark shaded portion there. And again, SPY making new highs. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so the support level was right around 68.10, SPX 68.10, which is in line with right around ES 68.20.21. So that offset, that ES to SPX offset was 10 earlier today, and now it is closer to 11, or somewhere between 10 and 11. I started with 10, now I have 11. So for example, I'm showing this SPX 68.50 level that acted as resistance yesterday and today at ES 68.61. And also this level, the SPY 680 level, around that level acted as support. And that was a good entry point for this pullback. We'll take a look at it in a minute. Pullback right around 950 or so. So that was the key entry point for long today. All right, so now ES is broken out above the 68.50 level, resistance level. Here's the ES upper daily expected move. I do calculate that independently or separately from the SPX upper daily expected move. And we'll take a look at setups in just a couple of minutes. So the expected moves coming up. Also the SPY 685, large gamma 4 level. And the upper daily expected moves in line, next levels up. And we'll take a look at trace and see if there are any positive gamma strikes up above that could be acting as potential targets. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Let's move on to NASDAQ. Take a look at NQ futures of Bookmap. Similar chart. Big drop at 9 a.m. And then recovery ever since then. And unlike the S&P 500, NASDAQ has not recovered the highs. It's close to it, but has not recovered the highs before the cash opened, right before the drop, which was right at QQQ 624. All right, so let's step back. Let's take a look at the underlying index charts. QQQ and NDX. We'll start with QQQ. So we can isolate some of the levels in play. So let's go to QQQ. Let's zoom in on this. So you can see that 624 level acting as resistance. That's just a round number level. And then the drop down to QQQ 618. Retest of that level after the cash open, dark shaded portion. And then a recovery ever since. Again, unlike the SP 500, NASDAQ has not recovered its pre-market highs. And looks like maybe Microsoft having a stronger influence on the NASDAQ than the SP 500. And finally, let's take a look at NDX, the other underlying index component. And Lima Chris, hello, welcome, glad you're here. Ask, can I share my configuration on icebergs, please? Yeah, I can do that. When I get back to Bookmap, yeah, I'll show that. All right, so here's NASDAQ, NDX, gap down, and then a recovery. And now looks like NASDAQ may be finding some resistance at these two levels right here. Let's zoom in on this so we can get a closer look. All right, so the two levels here, potentially acting as resistance. There is a combo level, combo 4, 25,607, and then the more important level is the call wall at 25,600. All right, now back to Bookmap. All right, so here's this 25,600. That's a large gamma 3 level as well as the call wall. So we'll keep an eye on NASDAQ, see if it breaks above that level. And again, we'll take a look at setups in just a couple of minutes. All right, so that's NASDAQ, key levels in play. QQQ round number levels, 624 on the upside and 618 on the downside. And then for NDX, the 25,600 call wall potentially acting as resistance on the upside. Around that level was acting as resistance before the cash open. All right, that is, let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at Gamma. And then we'll get to some setups in the live market. So here's a current picture of Gamma. This is the Trace Gamma heat map. It's available to Spotgamma subscribers. This is updated every 10 minutes. So now we're moving on from static data, which are the levels that are updated once a day, to data that's updated every 10 minutes. And then we'll move on in a few minutes to, in just a couple of minutes, to real-time data. All right, so this is showing market makers Gamma. Red shading indicates negative Gamma. Remember, in negative Gamma, we're looking for higher volatility and a wider range of movement, trending market. And then blue shading above and below indicates positive Gamma. And positive Gamma, we're looking for lower volatility and more mean reverting price action. All right, let's step back in time. Go back toward just a few minutes. Let's go back to 9:40, just 10 minutes after the open. So SPX opened in negative Gamma, shown by the red shading, in between around 6,800 and 6,860, with again positive Gamma above and below. So let's step through time and watch the positive Gamma forming up above as traders sell, either sell calls or call spreads. So it looks like there is some positive Gamma developing at 68.70. and that would be the target for a move up. All right, now to real time. So now big positive gamma strikes at 68.70 and at 68.50. And again, remember, SPX is broken above the 68.50 level. So the next level up above would be the 68.70, which would be right around ES 68.80, 81. All right, so that's the current picture of gamma. Really red negative gamma down below and a little bit lighter shading up above. YouTube Gold Zone, I can't answer your question. If you Bookmap is the platform that I prefer. So, all right, so let's move on now. So let's take a look at some setups. And I'm going to start with the S&P 500. As always, I'm going to take a look at what options traders have been doing today. So this is the S&P 500 hero signal. Hero is hedging impact real-time options. It's showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components, which are SPX and SPY. We've already taken a look at those, and also XSP and ES. The white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the hero signal. Again, showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. And a rising purple line, rising hero signal, indicates traders are taking positive delta options positions. They are buying calls and or selling puts. And market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they hedge their delta exposure by buying ES futures. So the key turning point today, after the cash open, was right around 950 with this shift in the hero flow from negative delta to positive delta, that pullback, and then it's been move up ever since then. Let's take a look at the other hero signal available for the S&P 500, and that is the S&P 500 equity signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. And the dip occurred at the same time, and that was actually right around 953. Shift from negative delta to positive delta. And up until just a couple of minutes ago, the S&P 500 has continued to move higher, maybe just a pullback. All right, let's shift to puts and calls so we can get a little bit more clarity, see what traders are doing. Orange line shows calls, blue line shows puts, directional line indicates options delta. This is indicating that traders are buying calls and selling puts. And that is the same for the S&P 500 index components. So on the S&P 500 index signal as well as the equity signal, the orange line, blue line, call line, put line are both moving higher. All right, let's go take a look at Bookmap now. And we'll take a look at order flow in Bookmap here. So here's this sharp drop before the cash open. Volume dots of Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Magenta dots indicate more sellers than buyers. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. You can see the buyers started to come in again before the cash open. A pullback to right around the SPY 680 absolute gamma strike. And then price reversed higher again. The aggressive buyers start to come in. Looks like the sellers were exhausted. Small magenta volume dot. And it looks like large traders were fading this move with iceberg orders. That's shown by the light blue line. And now all three lines in the subchart are moving higher. So the light blue line showing icebergs net for the day. Since I opened Bookmap, traders are taking buying ES futures with iceberg orders, and also sell stop orders shown by the yellow line, or buy stop orders. I'm sorry. So buy stop orders helping to fuel that move higher, as well as aggressive buyers. That's shown by the magenta to dark blue line. A little bit choppy in the morning, but really all three lines started to move higher right around noon. So there have been some deep pullbacks along the way. Good entry points for longs. Pullbacks to VWAP. And the S&P 500 continues to grind higher. All right, and Lima Chris asked about configuration on icebergs. So let's take a look at that. And I'll show the subchart here for stops and icebergs. So I'm just using sum. I like the sum mode. And then when I want to see more details, I'll turn on the on chart and take a look at the actual events. All right, so I just changed the colors and I'm using sum mode. Or actually, I just changed the colors on this stops. I think that's the default for icebergs. So that's the only change. Now, if you want to see my settings for the stops and icebergs on chart, come over to Options-Doug channel in Discord, and I can post that information in there. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Let's take a look at NASDAQ now. Similar picture. Again, sharp drop, 9 a.m. Recovery, pullback. Aggressive buyers start to come in. In the case of NASDAQ, it looks like large traders are fading this move with iceberg orders shown by the falling light blue line. But it looks like aggressive buyers are driving price higher, shown by the rising cumulative volume delta, the dark blue line. Let's see what options traders are doing. And it looks like NASDAQ still struggling at the NDX 25,600 call wall. I'm going to shift back to the total signal. Let's go to NASDAQ, the index signal. So just like the S&P 500, there are two signals that we can take a look at. For NASDAQ, first is the NASDAQ index signal, and that is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity. For the two index components that we've already taken a look at, QQQ and NDX. And this is showing traders are taking positive delta options positions, buying calls and selling puts. Key turning point here was this pullback, again right around 953. And then moving higher, and resistance at the 25,600 call wall. All right, so the other signal available for the NASDAQ is the Mag 7 signal. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Tesla. And we'll take a look at quite a few of those stocks in just a minute. All right, so net for the day. Traders are taking positive delta positions in the Mag 7 stocks, and they are buying calls and selling puts, shown by the rising orange and blue lines. And again, turn around 953. Let's go to NASDAQ with the puts and calls on. All right, back to Bookmap. So again, key pullback. Then after that, pullbacks along the way up for long entries with a target at the 25,600 call wall. Which is still acting as resistance. Let's zoom in on this so we can check back in a few minutes. All right, let's take a look at some stocks. So let's take a look at the stock of the day first, Microsoft. So here's when the news came out, right around 9 a.m. Here's the cash opening print, right around 476. And then chop. Looks like for about 40 minutes, some aggressive buyers started to come in. Now this is when the news came out that Microsoft pushing back, saying they have not lowered their sales quotas, but Microsoft is still down on the day, still trying to recover. All right, let's see what options traders are doing. So again, the big move was started at 9 a.m. So let's go take a look and see what options traders are doing. So we'll go to Microsoft first. And note the bearish opening drive after the open. Traders are selling calls. Full alert comes in just after the cash open. When traders sell calls, market makers buy the calls. They have to sell stock to hedge their delta exposure. And again, Microsoft found support at the 475 hedge wall, put wall. Note during this time, traders were selling puts, taking advantage of the big drop, selling puts. And then this is when the news came out about, again, Microsoft has not lowered their AI sales quota. But again, still Microsoft down on the day. Let's check one other thing. Let's see what. I'm going to go to all trades. Whoops. I'm going to go to total. And let's see. All right, so it looks like almost all the options trading today is in options that expire this Friday. That's shown by the teal line. So that is the next expiry. So for stock, that would be on Friday. So almost all of the delta notional today in Microsoft is options that expire on Friday. So no longer term, not really any longer term players in here in the options market. Or they shift back to puts and calls. So net for the day, selling puts and selling calls. All right, so that's Microsoft. Key support at 475 hedge wall, put wall. All right, let's take a look at some of the other hyperscalers first and see how they were affected by the news. So let's go to Amazon. And you can see another bearish opening drive, then a recovery. And let's go to Bookmap. Go to Amazon. So there's the drop at 9 a.m. And then continued after the cash open right there, opening print. Somewhere 233, 30, 40, something like that. Drop down to 231, and then Amazon recovering, really just chopping around VWAP, that light blue line there. So let's go back to Hero now. Zoom in on this a bit. So we can see traders selling calls at the open. Bearish opening drive. Call sellers took the foot off the gas. And Amazon consolidates. Few call buyers come in. Amazon tries to recover. That didn't last long. So the key trade there was the bearish opening drive that lasted for about 10 minutes. All right, so that is Amazon, and Google has been very strong recently. The I guess the newly crowned champ of AI. And the hero signal was not really clear today. It looks like traders are buying calls, but there were a couple of large block orders, institutional orders, in the first 25 minutes. Large institutions buying puts. And looks like that's not going their way so far. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. So not a lot of clarity from Hero here for Google. Let's go to Google. All right, so we've gone from huge impact at 9 a.m. for Microsoft, a little bit smaller impact for Amazon, and then almost no impact for Google. Here's the 9 a.m. drop, just about 2 points. Google did a retest of that level, the 314 level, after the cash open, and then it's been heading up since then. And mostly aggressive buyers. You can see all the green volume dots, also the rising cumulative volume delta. Not a lot of clarity from Hero again, but a lot of clarity here in Bookmap showing aggressive buyers moving Google higher. Next stock I want to take a look at is Meta. Let's zoom in on this. And the reason I wanted to take a look at this is the call peak patterns setting up a short. So a little bit of a delayed bullish opening drive, then a couple call peaks here. Set up shorts right around 950 and then 1005, 1003, something like that. Net for the day, traders are selling puts and selling calls. Let's go to Meta. All right, here are the two call peak shorts. Actually, let me zoom in on this. So Meta, Meta was impacted by the 9 a.m. news. Sharp drop, 9 a.m. The Microsoft news, recovery. Then here are your two call peak shorts. First one at 648. Next one at 649. And then, of course, the brief bullish opening drive. Looks like this might have been better. This first pullback might have been better as a deep pullback for a long. All right, that's Meta. Let's take a look at NVIDIA. All right, NVIDIA also impacted by the 9 a.m. news. And then attempting a recovery. And note for NVIDIA, 180 is the hedge wall key gamma strike. And also there have been quite a few aggressive buyers since the cash open. Rising cumulative volume delta continues to rise. But NVIDIA continues to chop around VWAP. So really not a lot of movement in NVIDIA after the big drop at 9 a.m. Let's go see what options traders are doing. Go to NVIDIA. And net for the day, they are buying calls and selling puts. All right, here's the bullish stock of the day, Tesla. Very strong bullish opening drive. Traders buy calls, buying calls. When traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock to hedge their adult exposure. Full alert comes in just after the cash open. Signals significant options activity. Tesla breaks out above the 440 key gamma strike and then continues up until about 10:45 when the call buyers take the foot off the gas. And it looks like now they have resumed buying calls and Tesla moving higher. So this is about as clean and simple as it gets. They've also been selling puts today. All right, so note the notional value is pretty large. Delta notional for Tesla, over 1 billion. Over 1 billion positive delta notional. And also the blue line is a positive as well. All right, so let's go take a look at Bookmap. Go to Tesla. So Microsoft, bearish stock of the day. Tesla, bullish stock of the day. Sorry about the jumping around. So just a minor impact from the 9 a.m. Microsoft news. Looks like Tesla was already moving down. Tested the 430 level. Nice bullish opening drive. Almost up to 445. The liquidity in the Bookmap. And Bookmap there, that's the heat map in Bookmap, showing a history limit orders in the order book. Those are limit sell orders up above price. So there was first test just after 10:30, a 445 level. Price could not make it past 444, reverse lower down to VWAP. And now the call buyers have come back in and Tesla moving higher up to 450. All right, that's Tesla. Last stock I wanted to take a look at is AMD. And if anybody has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know, and I'll be glad to do that. All right, AMD was impacted by the Microsoft news, but is trying to recover. Let's see what options traders have been doing in AMD. All right, AMD, after a drop down to the 212.50 hedge wall and down below, that's when traders started buying calls shown by the rising orange line. AMD made a nice recovery. So a move up that took about an hour. Then the call buyers took the foot off the gas and AMD is chopping around. And the put sellers also joined the party later on, about 15 minutes later. Let's go back to Bookmap. Let's zoom in on this. Remember, 212.50 was the hedge wall. And AMD did break below that level, but around that level recovered. Aggressive buyers started to come in. You can see all the green volume dots, rising cumulative volume delta. As AMD recovered. So AMD doing a little bit better job of recovering than NVIDIA. All right, let's check the indexes. Let's see how NASDAQ is doing with that 25,600 call wall. still acting as resistance. All right, so NASDAQ has traded up to this combo level. But can't make it up above. Now, still struggling at the 25,600 call wall. Let's check S&P 500, ES. All right, remember that positive gamma up above. Let's go check trace. So it looks like that is diminishing a little bit. So that's SPX 6870, which would be right around ES 6880, 81. All right, so it looks like that's still up above. And then the large positive gamma at 6850. That could be pulling price back down. So that would be right around here, 6850. All right, questions, comments? Anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, let's zoom in on this. All right, back to trace. Let's zoom in one. So now this is the Spotgamma implied one-day move high. This is based on the opening price for SPX. It looks like SPX stuck just down below that level. A little bit of positive gamma up above. But still below the 6870 strike, which has dropped down quite a bit, the gamma. Let's check charm pressure. So what this is showing is buying support in blue, red showing selling pressure. $68.70, and this is showing a potential pin target with blue buying support below, red selling pressure up above at $68.70. So again, remember that would be $68.80, 81 on ES. Which would be up at the top of the chart here, just above the upper daily expected move for ES. So far it doesn't look like the S&P 500 has the energy to get up to that level. All right, let's go back to Hero. Let's take a look at some of the crypto stocks. Robinhood. Looks like Robinhood continues to recover as traders have been buying calls, selling puts. Robinhood moving up toward the 135 call wall key gamma strike. Let's take a look at Robinhood and Bookmap. So Robinhood continues to make a nice recovery. A lot of aggressive buyers shown by the green volume dots, rising cumulative volume delta. $135 strike up above. And the excuse me, the heat map of Bookmap again shows a history of limit orders in the order book, showing looks like around 31,700 limit sell orders up at that level. And most of those orders come in at the cash open. There were some in 135 before the cash open, but most of the orders come in at the cash open. Hello, Goose. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right, so that's Robinhood. Let's check on a couple of other stocks, crypto related. Coinbase, also recovering. Traders buying calls, selling puts. And they take the foot off the gas as Coinbase moves up toward the 270, 250 call wall. And Coinbase is trading up above that level. But the call buyers, put sellers have pretty much taken the foot off the gas. Another stock strategy, not doing as well. Nice short setup here. Call peak reversal, flow alert signals significant options activity and a potential reversal in hedging flow, in this case from positive delta to negative delta. So Robinhood and Coinbase doing a little bit better than the crypto treasury, Bitcoin treasury stock strategy. All right, let's check the indexes. I'm going to shift back to the total signal, go to S&P 500. All right, so now options traders chopping around. Check equities. That signal continues to move higher. Back to Bookmap. So ES not really making any progress in the last 45 minutes. Still stuck below 68.70. Oh, it looks like NASDAQ did break up above the 25,600 call wall. And the combo 4 level just above that. Note the sell stop orders triggered as NASDAQ moved up. So buy stop orders triggered as NASDAQ broke above that combo level. Some aggressive buyers as well. Let's go to Hero and see what options traders are doing. So let's go to NASDAQ first. Still pretty much sideways for the last 45, 50 minutes. Check Mag 7. And now that is moving down. So unless the hero signal for NASDAQ start to turn up, that breakout above the key levels may not hold. All right, last call, questions, stocks. All right, remember, upcoming in this week, Jobless claims tomorrow. PCE data, Michigan consumer sentiment on Friday. Then the November jobs report has been pushed back to December 16th. Next week should be an interesting week with the FOMC on Wednesday. We'll talk much more about that on Monday. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you on Monday. Thanks again. Bye.